Good morning, my name is Barbara Kay, and on behalf of my co-host Susan Pertnoy and the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, I'd like to welcome you to our program, Mosaic.
We're on location today at the inaugural season opening of Women's Philanthropy. Our focus is caring for others and humanity and the impact it has on our world. We'll be back with our program and our special guests after this brief message.
Thousands of community members come together through programs and services provided by Federation and our local partner agencies to create a vibrant and vital community in Palm Beach County. Together, we can ensure a vibrant Jewish future. Federation and you, changing the world together.
It was a shock when my smart, strong husband had a stroke. His mind was agile, but everything else failed him. I didn't see how he could possibly recover. But through patience, skill, and compassion, the caregivers at Morse Life brought him back to himself. They brought him back to me.
Morse Life Short-Term Rehabilitation.
Morse Life Health System, honoring senior living.
What if you could change the world? You can. We can do it together. With the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County, you are here, and we are all connected. Together, we can enrich Jewish life, care for vulnerable populations, and build global Jewish community. That's what we do, every day, here at home and around the globe.
Welcome back, and welcome Cynthia Brown and Cheryl Davidoff. Cynthia, you're the chairperson of the Women's Philanthropy.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the role is?
This is my second year, and I'm delighted to be in that role. I have a very good partner, staff partner, Debbie Schaefer, and we have a board made up of dedicated women who want to take part in what Federation does. And so Debbie and I are taking a very strategic tack, and we want everybody to take part and have responsibilities, and that's what our board does. It's the Women's Philanthropy. It deals with philanthropy, but also giving and what's important in our community.
And what about you, Cheryl? What's the role of the campaign chair?
Oh, I've got a big role, or a big job, I might say, to encourage women to make their own gift. And most women want to stand up, they want to be counted, and we're very happy to have play this role in the Jewish world.
Where do you get your motivation to become so involved?
From the beginning, not infancy, but I've always wanted to help people. I care about people, and I've been a volunteer probably all my life. And in terms of being Jewish, I realized that it's Jewish people who help Jewish people. I mean, we all love the arts and the diseases, etc. But when it comes down to need, and there is sadly a lot of need, it takes Jews to do it. And I just enjoy helping people. I don't mean that to sound, goody-goody,
No,
but I just feel it's important to make a contribution.
I think it's an imperative. I think it's our responsibility. Cheryl, what are some of the programs that you're having this year?
Well, we have a full line of programs coming up this year. Today being our very first opening event, and next coming up will be our Lion of Judah, which we changed this year. We're back to a luncheon format. In the past, we were part of a husband and wife, but this year it's only going to be women. And
Last year you didn't have the Lion of Judah,
exactly.
so you're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back. And we're also bringing back an event for women who give at the Morris-Shaw, Pomegranate. Many levels of giving within women's philanthropy, and there's a place for every woman in this community to be a donor.
That's wonderful. And to be, you're doing something with younger women. Could you talk about, I think it's called Kol Ami?
Koli Shah.
Koli Shah.
And they're part of a larger group, the Collaborative, and which is wonderful, dealing with leadership. It's called Collaborative 45, so it's obviously not young, but younger people. And
That's young.
It is young. Well, yes. But Koli Shah also has a representative on our board. They're a group of young women who want to be part, and they want to take part in social action. They are terrific and creative, and they're really our future. All of these people are our future.
Yes, they are. That's so important. Can you tell us what the significance of today's event was? Why it's an inaugural opening?
We need it today because it is our way of bringing new people into Federation, involving them, explaining Federation to them. So last year, Lynn Caston, who's the former campaign chair, and my friend, brought Jeannie's name to us, told us about a wonderful event, and said, this would be good for us. And the whole board talked about it, and we agreed, because what Jeannie brings is something that goes to the heart, that message. And when you are bringing new people in, and you want them to care about what's going on in your community, you need to get to their heart. You need somebody who speaks to that. And she did. I mean, she does. There is no question. I've heard her, and she is just amazing. So what we hope, obviously nobody is going to be transformed in a day, in a minute. I know that. But they need to be introduced to what's really happening in the community.
And to have humanity as our hope.
That's right.
That brings us to the humanity aspect of why we're here today. And now we're going to have the pleasure of hearing Barbara speak to Jeannie Updike-Smith. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to meet you, Jeannie. What a special event you have just performed.
Thank you.
Everybody was in tears and overwhelmed by what you had to say. And I tell you something, Irene Gut Updike, your mother, wrote this book in my hands. It's about the Holocaust, her experience during that period. Amazing. I'd like to bring our viewers slowly up the track so they'll understand how important a book like this is, literally. Your mom was born in Poland.
Yes.
And it was interesting. The first, she opens the book with the romance of her father and her mother. You want to share that? Just to explain the beauty of the gentleness of Poland at that period.
Well, the tradition was to put a small little boat in a river, a stream. A woman would do that. And then the man would purposely, I'm thinking, pick that particular boat as it floated down.
If he felt it was like it was his resignation. That was his destiny.
Exactly.
And that's how they met. And then they had your mother.
Yes.
And they lived in a very peaceful Poland at that time.
They did. My mom was born at a time where Poland was at peace, which didn't happen too often for Poland.
No. Yeah, and your grandmother, from what I understand, was a very caring grandmother.
Absolutely.
She fixed every bird that had a broken wing. Every fish that had a problem finding its home.
That's right, yes. And my mother's mother was the same way. They nothing that was around them could be injured or harmed without being brought into the house and cared for. So
then it was a natural thing for your mother to become a nurse.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And she went away, and the first year she came back in Poland, came back on a vacation from her school, just the beginning. What kind of a world did she meet at that point?
Well, a completely different one. You know, Hitler had invaded, Stalin had invaded. You know, I wish that I could have talked to her more about this particular thing. I didn't hear her story until I was a teenager, so there are so many things that I wish that I now could come back and say, how was this or that? And so, you know, it is a whole different world. I can't imagine what that would be like.
You tell the story, basically, of the transition of your mother through this period of history that was so difficult.
Well, you know, she went off to college, leaving her family and the security of that. And when Hitler invaded, she was on her own, a young woman who basically was without family and home. She got involved in helping people who were wounded and injured. And then as the resistance came through, the Polish underground or the partisans, she felt compelled to join up as a young person and do what she could, living out in the forest, living in a hole in the ground, doing what she could to try and fight the enemies that came into her country. So that's how she got started.
Yeah, but it was interesting because she really, she wasn't Jewish.
No.
And she had some Jewish friends and just accepted them like anybody else would accept people that are your friends.
Absolutely.
And so when this whole horrific experience took place, she responded in such a remarkable way, which is incredible.
She did, and you know, that's just her personality. She would have done that, and I don't even think she really realized all what was happening and how it was targeting the Jews at that point. It was just things were wrong in her country. People were getting hurt, innocent people, and you know, her country was overtaken. She had great pride in that, and so whatever she could do to help to make a difference, that's what she was going to do.
Yeah, but she also, I mean, she risked her life. She was raped by Russian soldiers.
Yes.
They threw up in the air almost like she was a bird that they were going to shoot down. She saw the ghettos.
Yes.
So she was compelled to do different things.
She was. At one point, there was a point where she saw a mass killing, actually, of Jewish people getting shot, putting in a pit, being buried, some alive. And, you know, it was that point, watching it behind a fence, that she, first of all, had an argument with God, if you will. As a Catholic girl, she said she looked up and screamed at him, "Where are you? And how can you let something like this happen?" And she even said, I don't even believe you're there. But she said, and I loved how she used to put this, she said as she kept walking, she was looking for an aunt's house at that particular moment. As she kept walking, she said there was one thought that settled into her heart. And it was the fact that God gives us free will to help and heal or to hurt and harm. And it's a choice that we all have to make. And she said that was the time. It was watching this horrific thing, really seeing what was going on, that she said, whatever it takes that I can do personally to help, I will. Yeah. So that was a turning point.
On that note, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with the remarkable story right after this brief message.
Through our partner agency programs in Israel, Federation creates opportunities for at-risk youth, families, and seniors. We also provide emergency assistance to the victims of terrorism. Community, like every gift, counts. Together, we can ensure a vibrant Jewish future. Federation and you, changing the world together.
My wife was the light of my life. Being her caregiver was both a joy and a challenge. I was determined to stick with it, but I needed help. Moore's Life was there. I lost her after a long journey, but now Moore's Life comes to help me. I look forward to seeing them.
Moore's Life Home Healthcare.
Moore's Life Health System, honoring senior living.
Federation and our overseas partners support the resurgence of Jewish life in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. We also provide humanitarian assistance wherever Jews encounter poverty and crisis. Community, like every gift, counts. Together, we can ensure a vibrant Jewish future. Federation and you, changing the world together.
Welcome back to Mosaic, and prior to the break we were talking about the remarkable history of your mother and the fact that she was a religious woman. She believed in God, she was a Catholic, but yet she chose to make sure she had the courage to make a difference in what was happening horrifically in Poland at that time during Hitler's reign. She ended up, though, in working in a kitchen. Mm-hmm. And explain what that was about.
Well, her job was to serve meals in a diner, basically. And so she would bring out the food to the tables, and she realized that often the Gestapo, the SS, the Nazis would be there in the diner talking, and she could overhear when they were talking about raids where the German army would go in to neighborhoods and break into houses and search top to bottom for Jews. Whether it was their house or people who were hiding them, if they would all be taken. So she was able to get that information to some of the Jewish people she had met that were forced laborers working in the laundry room. And they could take that information back to the ghetto and spread it around, and people were able to leave areas before they were raided. So there were some benefits of her being right where she was at. She could be a spy, if you will.
Which essentially was what she was.
That's right.
And saved many lives doing that as well. But she worked very closely with 12 other people in that situation. Explain to our viewers what happened and how she saved them.
At one point in the diner, the major that she was working directly under had one of the heads of the Nazi party there, and she heard from the conversation that there's going to be a total liquidation of the ghetto, that people were all sent to camps or killed. She wasn't sure, but she knew their fate was going to be bad. And she was able to, the major had changed professions, if you will, and taken a villa at town and was going to be leaving the camp that he was working at. And he told Mom she would be the housekeeper there at this villa. And when she saw the villa, my mom noticed right away a mezuzah on the doorpost. She had enough Jewish friends to let her know what that meant. And she hoped that if a wealthy Jewish, this is a big, beautiful mansion, a wealthy family was able to build this house, there's a good chance that somewhere would be a hiding place in it. And that was her hope. And so she was able to help all of her friends escape this laundry room at the camp.
They had a tunnel underneath it.
Well, there was a tunnel in the villa. But they were all able to escape and get to this villa, go down a coal chute into the basement, and survive. All kinds of things happened, but thankfully they did find the hiding place. It was down in the basement. There was a false panel of wood. When you laid on your stomach on the floor, you could see it. And you could unscrew that panel, and there was a tunnel that wrapped around the side of the villa, and a small room that sat just under the gazebo in the side yard, just big enough to put these 12 people in case of an emergency.
Yeah. And then, of course, the general found out, the officer that she was living with, or whose house it was, found out about the fact that she was hiding these 12 people.
Yeah. One day she had come back from shopping, and she had always made it a point to put her key on the inside of the door lock at the villa, and that way if the major came home, his key wouldn't work. And during the day that he was gone, the Jewish people in the basement were the ones that helped her run the villa. They did all the cooking and cleaning and laundry and everything. But my mom had seen a horrific scene that day in the market, a hanging of a Christian family and the Jewish family they were hiding. Absolutely horrific, where they hung the children first in front of the parents. And it was traumatic for her. And she, when she got back to the villa, forgot to put her key in after 2 years of doing it. And she went into the kitchen, she put her groceries down and opened the basement door and let 3 of the women come up to help her. And she said in the middle of their conversation, they heard a noise and turned, and there was the major standing there. It was quite a time. He turned around and went to his office where the telephone was, and she told her friends to get downstairs, and she said, I literally ran after him and grabbed a hold of his legs to stop him as he was heading for the telephone.
And what happened?
He screamed at her, "How could you do this in my own home after all I've done for you? Why?" And through tears, she said, "They're my friends, and nobody has the right to kill because of race or religion." And she said, "Punish me, kill me, but let them go, they're innocent." And he continued screaming, I'm supposed to march you down to the Gestapo and tell them I didn't know I had Jews hiding in my own house. You know, you've killed us all. And he took some time to try and think things through. And when he came back into the villa, my mom had to face him to find out what his decision was. And he literally reached out and grabbed her by the waist and pulled her down on his lap and said, "I've made a decision. I'm going to keep your secret for a price. You have to be mine anytime I ask, and willingly." And, you know, the thing that is incredible for me is my mom had experienced a horrible gang rape with the Russians at the beginning of the war. And now she has a 60-plus-year-old man who is forcing her to have sex with him to be his mistress. And, you know, it wasn't a very good start for her. But she said there was too many lives at stake, and there was no decision to be made.
Yeah. It's interesting. One of those 12 people had a baby.
Yes, they did. They had found out, they had been married for years and never been able to have children, and while they were living in the basement of this major's house, find out that they're pregnant. And they all said that we can't have a baby to be born, it'll cry and give us all away. And so my mom was given a list of supplies needed for an abortion, and she begged and pleaded with them, partly her Catholic background, but mostly she just said, "I've seen too many innocent people die already, and Hitler's not going to have this baby." And all of them finally agreed that they would be in it together. They'd live together or they would all die together.
She eventually got to the United States.
Yes.
Amazing. I think it was
49.
1949, yeah. And she married a wonderful guy.
She did. She actually, at the end of the war, she was smuggled out of a camp and put into a DP camp in Germany.
Yes.
And while the war was winding down, there was a group of men from the UN who came to do interviews, and one was an American delegate who'd interviewed her, and he's the one who invited her to the United States. So quite a long time afterwards, she comes into New York Harbor. She has the Jewish community. She could only speak Yiddish, no English, but there was plenty of Jewish people there in New York that helped her find a job and get an apartment. And after 5 years, my mom became a citizen. And to celebrate, she went to a very fancy restaurant in Manhattan. It was lunch, and she said there was only one empty available chair.
And who was there?
A gentleman came up, said, "May I sit here?" And he looked at her and he said, "I know you." That was the UN delegate who'd interviewed her. And he took her to dinner that night. And the next night, and 6 weeks later, they were married.
Yeah. No, but you know something, she spent the remainder part of her life telling about her story.
It took a while. When she came to the United States, she put a do not disturb sign on her forehead. She was never going to think or talk about it. And my parents moved to Southern California. I was born, and my mom became an interior decorator. And until I was 14, that's all I knew about her, is that she was extremely talented and very beautiful. One night we were having dinner, and the phone rang. And Mom got up to answer it, and on the other end of the line was a college student who was doing a survey for a report in school. And his topic was the Holocaust never happened.
Never happened. Yeah.
And he was just calling random people to find out what they thought. And he sure found out. And, you know, I did too that night. I remember looking at my dad saying, "What is she talking about?" He was the only person in this country who knew her story because he had interviewed her all those years back at the DP camp in Germany. And when my mom hung up the phone, I remember it was like yesterday, her looking at us through tears as she had brought up these memories she'd hid for so long. And she said, "All these years that I've kept silent and not talked about what hate can do, I've allowed history to repeat itself." And she said, "I'm willing from now on to talk to anybody." And that's exactly what she did.
And she became one of the, she's mentioned Yad Vashem. She's got the museum, the Holocaust Museum in Washington, the memorial.
Yes.
And one of the righteous Gentiles. I mean, she's really been, oh my goodness, elevated since this awareness took place and made everybody else aware. You know something, what you're doing at this point is very critical. We're living in a world with such, how should I say it, distaste for something that doesn't either look like you,
Right.
or stand like you, or talk like you, and there is no ingathering. And it takes a lot. The women that we met at the beginning of the program, they're very involved also in caring and taking care of and trying to make the world a better place. What happens when you go around and speak about your mother?
Well, I have a lot of different groups that I talk to, but you know, it is now my full-time job, and I had to really think it through if I was going to leave my husband and my family and the West Coast to travel all over. I needed a so what, even more so than sharing my mom's story, which is important and an honor to do, but I needed a bigger so what. And it doesn't take much to find that. You know, history continues to repeat itself. We've got hate crimes going on, bullying in schools, genocide still continuing. Yeah, and so it's a story that needs to be told. And what's different about my mom's story, because there's lots of Holocaust stories, and thankfully, you know, a lot of them are preserved. But we have a non-Jew, a bystander, if you will, which today we all are. Every one of us, regardless of what our background is, we're a bystander to the things that happen. And we have an opportunity to be an upstander, to stand with and say, stop it. Or, you know, I stand with something that's right, stand against something that's wrong. Even to stop, for a kid in school, to stop a joke that they hear that hurts somebody. You know, we have that opportunity on a daily basis to do things, to be a bystander, and then choose to be an upstander.
In My Hands, that's the title of the book.
Right.
So she felt that the world was in her hands to make better.
It is. Our decisions, our opportunities, our day-to-day moments are in our hands. And she's not alone in that. We all have that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
What a responsibility you have.
You know, it's a passion now, and I see I've bought into the importance of it, and I can't think of anything that's more worthwhile. So.
Good luck, and keep doing it.
Thank you. Thanks.
I was so moved by what we heard today.
Irene's story was remarkable and gives us hope for humanity.
Yes, everybody, I hope takes hope from it. Thank you for being with us, and be with us again next week when we have another look into the Jewish world. Goodbye from Mosaic.